Cameron DeTeague, and this evening I'm going to do an instructional video on how to properly disassemble a Ruger AR-15 rifle. This rifle is used on my part to combat the feral hog problem in the state of Texas. So it's very important that this rifle is properly cleaned and maintained on a regular basis to make sure that it operates, most importantly, in a safe manner and an effective manner. It's important that this rifle does work and is in tip-top shape to make sure that the wildlife management that is being done is done ethically and as humanely as possible. So making sure that this rifle is in fact clean and accurate is very, very important. So in order to prep this AR for a proper cleaning, we first have to make sure that it's in a safe state to handle and disassemble. We do this by first releasing the magazine from the magazine well, and we'll do this also while keeping our hands and fingers away from the trigger. As you can see, the magazine is empty, and the next step that we'll do to make sure that it is safe to handle is to make sure that the chamber is empty as well. As you can see, the chamber is empty of any live rounds. Once we do this, we now know that the rifle is in a safe position to disassemble, handle, and clean in order to make sure that it's in the best state possible. So the first thing that we need to do in order to disassemble this gun is to release the rear retaining pin. That is this pin here. You can see the small circle on the head of the pin. So I use a small Allen wrench. You can use a screwdriver or your finger, anything of the sort, in order to push on the back side of the pin to make a small gap in order to pull the head of the pin out. So once there's a gap on the rear retaining pin, you can use your fingers to gently pull it forward, and note that it will not completely eject from the rifle, but it will slide forward. This allows us to partially separate the upper receiver from the lower receiver. Once we do so, we can now remove the bolt carrier group. Once we remove the bolt carrier group, we can bring the upper receiver back down to the lower receiver in order to release the forward retaining pin, which is identical to the rear retaining pin. Again, I use an Allen wrench to push on the back side of the pin to create a gap that I can pull the pin with my fingers. At this point, I can completely separate the upper receiver of the rifle from the lower receiver of the rifle. At this point, we will separate the bolt carrier group. And the first step in doing so is removing the firing pin retaining pin. This retaining pin holds the firing pin in place, which is ultimately, of course, what makes the rifle fire. So this is a very important piece that we have to make sure and not lose. At this point, I can just tilt this over to remove the firing pin of the rifle. The next step is to remove the bolt cam pin. That's this pin here. In order to do so, I change the position of the pin from vertical to horizontal. Once that pin is horizontal, I can gently put it in my hand and place it next to the other components. At this point, I can then release the actual bolt from the bolt carrier group. Your bolt and your bolt carrier. At this point, the Ruger AR-15 is properly disassembled in order to effectively and properly clean and maintenance this gun. Thank you and have a great evening. Thank you for listening.